right, welcome back to the Dreadful Dialogue. My name is Alyse, and I'm your host. And today, our guest is a good friend, Brad. If you've listened to some episodes in the past, you may have listened to Mr. Harrigan's Phone, where we had Celeste on as a guest, aka Rumi. This is actually her husband, and Celeste is like family, Brad's like family. So I want to welcome Brad to the podcast.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
All right. So today, Brad and me are going to be chatting about An American Werewolf in London from 1981. Of course, we're going to spoil this movie, guys. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it if you don't want to be spoiled. Otherwise, stick around and listen. Before we get into our discussion, I do want to say, man, shout out to Brad, because this is a movie that I really like. It's not in my top. It's not my top 5, but it could be in my top 10 on a good day. You know, movies rotate as a big fan of the horror genre. But it's definitely probably my top 10 for the horror genre. So, Brad, what made you pick this movie?
Well, when I was a kid, I was always into horror movies. I didn't really like animals, so I kind of watched horror movies. And this movie came out in 81, so I was probably I'm going to age myself. I'm about 5 or 6 here. My mom says, hey, let's sit down and watch this movie. God, I didn't know it was going to be American Werewolf in London, of all movies, right? I mean, hey, let's watch these guys. They're kind of backpacking, they're out in the wilderness, which is not even true. They're not in the wilderness anywhere, right? It's a dark pathway, and they end up at this crazy, this bar where, people are just like, yeah, beware of the night, but don't want to tell them anything, So, I blame it on my mom. It was more her fault than anything. And ever since then, I've kind of always been like a horror movie fan. It's just kind of been that thing. And, this movie is special. This movie is a real special movie. Like, it has stuff in there that never seen before. There's only one other comparable movie. We can talk about it later. There's only one other comparable movie, but there's kind of two. One we know really well, Michael Jackson's Thriller. I mean, that was
yes,
that was
exactly
awesome, right? I mean, that's a good werewolf type of change look, a different look on things. I think it was Michael Landis, I believe, that produced it, or even came up with the idea.
John Landis.
John Landis. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, I make mistakes. I've caught mistakes when I go back and listen about, the listeners going to get me. It is what it is.
Very good, right? And the second one, the one that's really cool, and I don't want to get too far off topic, American Werewolf, it was Howling. Now, that's a chick that changes. So that's pretty awesome, too. Like, you don't always see female werewolves change. And that one's a cool one. So check that one out, too. But anyway, American Werewolf just was something I fell in love with. My mom showed it to me, and it was just something I stayed with. I've seen it probably, maybe 12 times. And over and over, I learned something new about it. It plays on your mind a little bit new, something different. And as you get into being adults, you pick up on those little bit of mind things that are really interesting. Like, I didn't know I could think that way. So
it's got a little bit of everything. And you were right when you mentioned John Landis. I think he wrote and directed this one.
Yeah.
So little tidbit of information. Rick Baker is the guy who did the makeup, the big makeup artist for a horror genre. After Michael saw that movie, he was the one, he hit them up like, I want John Landis to direct my video, and I want Rick Baker to do the makeup. So it's the same change.
I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, why not?
I think it might have been Fright Night too, or somebody from the crew, and I could be wrong. I'd have to Google that shit.
Sure, and Fright Night is great too, man. I mean, that's fantastic movie too. Yeah, that's always good stuff.
But yeah, that it's so interesting. You talked about the change because as a child, when Thriller was out, me and my brothers, I think too, I'd have to verify with my mom. I used to hide behind, like, we had a really tall couch.
Yeah.
And that's where I got in trouble, because I'd go behind there and I'd hide and sneak watch a movie, because my mom used to watch horror movies, and I'd hide behind the couch at night when she was watching movies and I wasn't supposed to, and I'd watch them. But those would come on during the day. That's when TV played actual music videos. And I would hide, and I would be like, Mom, let me know when the change is over. Cause I loved the zombie and everything else, but I didn't like seeing Michael change. Now as an adult, I love it. But, that change got me. And that's a scene from this movie as a child. It also, like, it shook me a little bit. I was like, it was such a good movie.
Yeah, and think about it. If we can stay on topic on the change here, if you're okay.
Go for it. Keep going.
I mean, it's fantastic how, there's a song playing, Blue Moon. I mean, think about that.
Hmm.
Blue Moon is playing, and this dude is metamorphosizing like anything I've never seen before. Like I've never seen a dude's spine just start cracking, and he's screaming in pain, like,
Yeah, you can feel it. You can feel
oh,
his pain.
yeah, dude. All of a sudden, his fingers are getting long, his mouth is stretching, and
Mhm.
definitely see the same resemblance in Thriller to that. But I mean, just think about the agonizing pain, and then in the background you have Blue Moon playing.
Yeah, yeah. The whole soundtrack is like amazing.
Yeah, so I
I
don't know.
think almost every song has moon in it in the title. I think they did that on purpose.
That's actually a very good trivia question too. I wonder if that's a something we can do a trivia thing on. But anyway, yeah, the Blue Moon is playing. He's going through all this agonizing pain, and then nobody even thinks to slow down and like, what is really going on, and it happens so quick. Long fingers, his feet, and then he's just like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was like, oh my goodness, dude! And then you can definitely see semblance in, John Landis wanting to. I was wondering maybe they did him at the same time because there's such a close resemblance to how it turned out, But God, just think about that. I don't I think I've ever seen a werewolf change like that. I don't think I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I mean, I think like The Fly traumatized me as a
Yeah,
child, like that
yeah,
change. But this was probably the most traumatized. I think because I saw this one before The Fly, it was
yeah,
just it had a bigger effect on me.
yeah.
And I think I read on IMDb that Rick Baker was like really mad because he's like, oh, it spent like weeks working on this and it was like hours of the makeup and it was like such a short sequence. But they were kind of like, it had to be when they watched the audiences, like first watching it, like I guess like the test audiences, they were
Yeah,
like, the people were so horrified that they start to look away that they're like, if we left it on too long, we were going to lose them. And then they weren't paying attention to the next scene. So
yeah.
it worked out in that sense. And Rick Baker he got the Academy Award for this movie for best makeup.
Oh,
And that was the first year that they introduced that category into the Academy Awards. So kudos to Rick Baker.
I mean, that's nice. Good job, Rick Baker. I mean, dude, you created something that all of us are looking forward to now. Like, show me that wolf again, man. Like, it's just not the same. Even in, your newer ones, the Lycans, the new Resident, help me out here.
Um. Oh my God. We just talked about this one
It's not Resident
with
Evil, but
with Beckinsale.
yes, that's right. With Kate Beckinsale,
Underworld.
Underworld's, the Underworld Lycan and all that. I mean, that's not even the same, right? It doesn't even. I'm
No.
not even scared of those. I'm actually
No.
looking watching Kate. Just to be honest with you, I'm like, hey, Kate, you're a great actor. I mean, you're fantastic, Kate. I mean, she's a great
Yeah.
actor. Yeah, she kind of brings the movie. But anyway, back to her. Just to see him change like that, and then what I thought was really interesting is how they changed it up a bit. Is how they showed him as a human and a werewolf, but it wasn't always him as a human, right? So it was always some type of
Yeah. He was like a zombie
mental, yeah,
looking.
like a mental segment in his head. It was always something
Mm-hmm.
mental going on. One time he sees his family, and they're being shot up by these mutants, and it's I
What
mean it's
were those things?
and who is
They look like
also
Nazis. Or I call them goblins, but I don't know what they actually. I don't know if like they clarify what they're supposed to be, right?
yeah, yeah, that's such a mind game on somebody to man, what a mind game that plays on somebody.
Yeah, so we went right into it. We got right into the change, and I like that. The first question I asked you is why did you pick this movie? And I was going to ask you where you first saw it, so you got both of those for me. So for the listeners, so at the beginning, there are a couple of guys. I want to kind of go back to the beginning of the movie now. So the guys, they're like hitchhiking, and I don't know if they're like on a buddy trip, like a backpacking trip. I don't know if they don't clarify if they're going to just be going through London or going through Europe. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, I haven't, but I always concern myself with hostels. I've seen the movie Hostel a few times, so I'm not sure that would be. I
Yeah, I
would
just found it.
somewhere in the English farmland. I don't find myself walking through the meadows on a road that is not labeled, it's not lit. I just don't find myself doing that. So, I mean, to me, my first clue would be like, I need to find somewhere where I can shack up for the night, and I don't. A good question is, I thought him and his buddy were gonna do some. They were on their way to London. I believe that's something. He says something like, "Yeah, we're going on our way to London,"
Okay,
but they end up. There's the movie,
where?
yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, I just found it interesting because I think it adds to the movie because you're like, oh, they're just these like happy-go-lucky, like they're living life on the edge. Like I don't know, I wouldn't be a hitchhiker. I wouldn't pick up a hitchhiker. Granted, it's a different time. I did like the backpacking through Europe thing, but I was very conservative with it. Like I had 3 friends with me. Like we learned the hard way. Like don't show up anywhere at night. We didn't end up like these 2 dudes showing up at a bar at night with like nowhere to go. Like we had our stuff planned. Granted, it was internet era, so it was a little easier to travel, but there was like so many red flags, like the way when they walk into the bar, the slaughtered lamb, right?
The slaughtered lamb, and there's literally a picture of a wolf slaughtering a lamb on the board when you walk in. I mean, it's right there.
I don't know if there's an actual lamb on it, but he's at least got the like a knife. Something through him, right?
Yeah, correction. There's not a lamb on there. It's just a knife. Sorry, I got something in my eye here. There's
a knife or a piker.
Yeah,
sword. I can't recall.
And then you walk in, the record needle falls off. Right, you get that eerie feeling. Like for me, I'm like, okay, well, there goes a Guinness and a shot. Like I don't know if I want to order anything from you.
Yeah, there's like the pentagram. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
That's a great question. Nobody wanted to. I mean, they wanted to answer, but nobody wanted to be truthful. But you could tell there were a couple of guys who wanted to spit some truth. Like they were ready to preach the gospel for sure. Like, hey, buddy, check it out. They're ready to do something for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you didn't, I always wonder, like, should they have not called it an American Werewolf in London? It would have made it more like you wouldn't have known. Okay, somebody's gonna become a werewolf because they're clearly American guys, and the people in the bar are not American, and the setting is not American. But you're still like, even though you're like, why are you ignoring these red flags? Get out of this bar.
Get out of the bar.
The guy you were hitchhiking with the sheep said to stay out of the moors, which I had to look up what moors are. They're like these pastures.
Yeah, it's the pasture. It's the meadows, the darkened meadows where there's.
What we might call meadows. I don't know. Is that an English thing?
It's an English thing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Stay out of the moors.
Yeah, I found that. I was like, oh, why are you guys doing that?
Yeah, and it's definitely red flags. Pentagrams, slaughtered lamb. People we only have whiskey and beer, and he's like, well, I guess I'll just take those 2, right? No choices. Do you have food? No. Well, I'm probably going to be, not have any food. I can't believe a bar in that area didn't have liverwurst to offer these 2 gentlemen of all things. Liverwurst and some red wine. Would have been fantastic. But I guess that doesn't happen there. And heed the warnings. I mean, they actually told them in the bar, stay on the path. Right? You start watching them walk, and they're talking about, hey, this is what happens. This is my girlfriend. I really love her. And then David's like, you just met her, dude. I mean, seriously, just because she spreads your legs and tell you she loves you, now you're going to fall in love with her. This is your best friend ever. Come on. He's like, yeah, whatever. So he doesn't blame it at all. And he goes, but when we get to London, we'll find out. Right. So I think that was the intention. Right. But she backed out. I believe that's what the story was. So they're just walking. All of a sudden, the road is going right, and they're going left. Okay, first of all, if you're a backpacker, where is your headlamp, my friend? Come on.
Yeah, the military person in me is like, they don't have any like this, but I'm like, yeah, it's not.
In the moonlight is lighting the road. Slaughtered lamb, pentagram, stay on the road. I mean, there's so much going on, right? And they're just chit-chatting. They're just walking, not a big deal. All of a sudden, he's like, hey, what was that? Oh, I don't know. Could have been a dog. Sure, it's pitch black.
And you nailed that hell.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then, these guys just keep walking. They don't just mind to stop and try to look for the road. Then they hear the howl get closer. Now they're trying to run. They got backpacks on and run. There's nowhere to find the road because they have no idea which way they went to find the road. I mean, to me, you're screwed from there on.
Yeah, you knew it was going downhill at that point.
It's just gone. You're done.
You brought up something that, like, I don't know. We don't have video, but when you were saying something, I was like, oh yeah. When you were talking about the conversation between the 2 guys, how Jack was talking about the girl he fell in love with or whatever, right? Because I find it so hard to believe that like David fell like in love with, like, in this short amount of time, him and the nurse like fall in love, and they're all like, I love you. And then it's just, I mean, they did I mean, I'm kind of jumping to the end. And then it's just like ending. I like that they didn't try to make it this happily ever after, but David did exactly what he was talking smack on Jack on.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize that.
he did the same
He
exact
just
thing.
brought that to my forefront.
Yeah, and he didn't
Yeah.
even know he was doing it. Yeah, that's yeah, and I mean, I don't blame him. Nurse Alex, I mean, she's a hot item. I'm not upset with him at all. I mean, hey, good
Yeah.
job, bud. You
She
know, do
was,
your
yeah, she's
thing.
very,
She's
very beautiful lady.
good looking lady.
Yeah, and I also read on IMDb that the reason they're wearing like the two guys uh Jack and David are wearing puffer jackets is that the director was like, "Oh, I wanted them to feel like they were in space, like they were flying." And I'm like, "Okay, I mean, I didn't see that, but it's just so amazing when you hear the things like that go on behind the creators' minds." And I'm like, "Okay, like to add to that feeling of like we're not from here." And
Yeah,
different.
and the puffer jacket, and they were still freezing in the puffer jacket. So not only that, it was a low costing, very under budget puffer jacket as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you would know. You and Rumi are super outdoorsy.
We've
I
done
don't
some
have all the
stuff.
gear.
Yeah, we've done some stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I chase the sun. I don't really chase the cold too much.
Well, we got stories. I mean, we got stories for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, another thing that I was going to ask you was, so the movie, they marketed it as a horror comedy. Do you think it was like a horror comedy, or do you think it was more one or the other? Or because I think it's also some other stuff. But I'm gonna let you speak first before I give you my thoughts.
So look, there's a ton of comedy in there. All right, say the bumbling cop, right? He starts talking out of nowhere, and he's like, "Well, what if we turn on the lights?" Like, what does that mean? We're talking about a full moon right here.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
kind
He's
of funny,
immensal
right?
the whole time. Yeah,
And then, Jack is always haunting his nightmares. Well, what she thinks are nightmares, which are really, it's really
yeah. We don't know.
happening.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's psychological, right? So that's kind of funny to watch his face kind of decay, and he gets like
yeah.
this.
It's like that flap hanging.
It's like a roast beef over here, just hanging out over here, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally fun, right? And then, and then when he gets to people, the first night that he turns, right? We're here in Blue Moon, the magic turn, he goes and kills like 7 people this night, right? Kills 7 people. And then that day he's sitting in a theater. Now, what's the other funny part? It just happens to be a porn going on. They're in a porn theater. I didn't realize this. I had no clue. Remember, I watched this with my mom. I mean,
You were a kid. Yeah, as a kid, I didn't catch on to that.
no, but I got older and I actually watched it with wifey the other day. She's hadn't seen it a couple of times, so I was like, I forgot that was a porn in there. And the porn is having great. Let's just get off that topic. But anyway, and he's in here trying to concentrate. I'm like, you're in a porn trying to concentrate, get rid of the nightmares. This is always going to work, right? For anybody, it works great. Anyway, all the murder victims come and visit him, and they're telling him, "Hey, why don't you just stand in front of a train, or why don't you just shoot yourself in the face, or how about you just stand
Yeah,
here
yeah. Their
and
comments are great.
stab yourself with a knife 1,000 times?" I mean, so there's some comedy there, right? I mean, that is kind of funny. Like David really, everybody knows David really needs to kill himself, right? And
Yeah.
she
Oh no,
suggested
but they're not calling him David. They're
yeah,
calling him Mr. Kessler the whole
Mr.
time.
Kessler the whole time. Yeah, Mr. Kessler. That's right. Great thing to point out, Mr. Kessler, right? And then just take a bullet, silver bullet, and shoot yourself, And Jack's going, yeah, David. Now he's all burnt. His teeth are showing up. His skin's really hanging off. He just looks horrible. His eyes are all bulged out. So there is some comedy there. I mean, but to me, honestly, just to look at the different things that went on, like he fell in love, right? You said that earlier. He fell in love. He lost his best friend. He doesn't know if it was psychological or not. He don't really know what happened. He's making these wolfish faces in the mirror to help him, like, oh my, what's going on? Is this real? Is it? He's got a doctor that has all these award-winning things, and he's looking in his eyes and saying, "Yeah, you're fine. Everything is great. CAT scans are everything." But still, psychologically, this guy's going nuts. I mean, he is absolutely going crazy. The only thing that saves him is pretty much fall in love with Nurse Alex. I mean, that really saves him. I mean, honestly.
I think so.
But even though he killed already 8 people, he's going to turn again. And I'm sure she'll have a question about the ending coming up, so I'm not going to jump into that. But
Yeah, I know.
there's a buildup here. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, there's some comedy. There is more, I think, mental, psychological warfare going on there.
Exactly.
But I definitely think some comedy is there, and it kind of keeps you like, yeah, David, kill yourself, and you start agreeing with everybody, like, yeah, dude, you just killed 7 people. Like, you need to
Yeah.
off yourself, my guy. Like you need to make that happen. It's horrible because you're telling the movie actor, "Hey man, you need to kill yourself, bro."
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's touchy. But yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think it does a pretty good job though of like having some drama, having the horror and the comedy. What I like about it is it's not like ha 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 like the characters aren't laughing. It's like this dry black comedy, I guess you call it, or
it's
dark
English
comedy. Like
English humor.
it, yeah, except for the part where I laugh every time when he's in the park and he's naked and he takes the balloons from the little boy and the little boy's like a
Yeah.
naked man stole my balloons and the mom's like what
What? Yeah.
that part never doesn't get funny. um yeah, like, and I think for that scene I also read that they when he's like in the gorilla's cage, was it, no, was he, no, or lion, dang it, I can't remember
It was the
which
Lions.
cage is he?
Yeah, he was in the
That like
Lions.
they were like they were filming it and they're like, oh, we got to do it in one take, and he was like actually in this cage, and then like he's like, oh, who are all these extras, like why are all these extras, and they're like, oh, those aren't extras, those are actual like patrons, the zoo's open right now, and I'm
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
my god,
yeah.
this guy's naked like in the zoo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they're
fantastic, right? I mean, and he doesn't even. He's like, "Holiday," like he doesn't even know. He doesn't even
yeah,
show you his first thought is trying to figure out how he got here. He's just like, "Okay, I'm naked. I need to just cover myself up." You know, in other movies, they try to give you like a "How did I get here?" kind of leeway or a segue to like, "I woke up naked in a zoo." How the hell did that happen?
yeah, yeah,
That'd be my first response, you know. And then I would try to go find
yeah,
the balloon, you know. But I would probably spend too much time trying to figure out that first response.
yeah, he's
I
just
better
like,
go
I
get
gotta
the
get out,
balloon.
I gotta get covered and get out of here. And another interesting thing, speaking of the porno theater, so originally that theater only played cartoons, like, and which I guess was a popular thing before our time. I don't know.
Oh, sure.
My dad's told me about that there was theaters where they just played like cartoons and stuff. Well, by the time they actually like get to the point where they're getting the movie made, it had turned, and they're going to use, they were going to use that location. They find out it's now a porno theater, so the writer had to like change the
Oh, wow.
script to
Oh,
make that a part of it.
oh,
So
okay. Interesting.
that wasn't intended, I guess.
Oh,
And they
wow.
even filmed them. They filmed that scene for like the porno scene got filmed first, apparently.
Yeah. Oh,
And they filmed the rest of the movie in sequence to give Rick Baker enough time to get
yeah.
everything ready for that he needed for the transformation arc.
Sure, sure. I mean, you know, the guy did such a great job, you know, and I just, I wonder, you know, I'd start to think about how they did some of those type of, you know, the work and his transformation. They almost filmed the ending first and then work backwards, you know, so you wouldn't have to have him change all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like you got that one strong bit and they just filmed that and then just kind of put everything else around it, maybe, you know, because it's just done so well. I mean, it's hard to, and you could tell that there was like, I mean, there was clips where you could tell they went off camera to this part of his body changing, that part of his body changing. But I just wonder, you know, it would be something to try to, you know, look into. It would be some good
Yeah, I'm sure
research to
there's
look
something
into.
out there. There's probably a documentary, or I even have like I have the Blu-ray and it has like the director's commentary. I wanted to sit down and get into that one. I never had a chance. I think there's even a documentary with it, so now I got some homework to see if
All right, that's cool. Yeah,
to
yeah,
look
yeah.
more into that. I'm sure now with YouTube, there's something out there that like, we
Oh,
could
I
probably
wouldn't
look
put
for,
it
but it
past
would be
them.
good.
Yeah.
So the pacing of the movie is good. The dream sequence. So we said, so they were walking. You know, he turns into a werewolf. So Jack's character, what did you think about how like when we first see Jack, he's like slightly decaying, and then like we said towards the end in the porno scene, he's not even. That's not even Jack. I think that's like a complete puppet at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, what did you think? Did you think that had anything to do with like his character or with David's character?
Well, so you know,
Did it
honestly,
like tie into David's transformation as well?
yeah, you know, I think they might have had kind of like a whole thing going on there. You know, for me, Jack's character, he acted as the protagonist. So I think that he was like trying to egg him on a bit, you know, trying to push him forward a bit, you know, and he was like the only way this curse is going to end, and you know, if you don't do these types of things, you know, then we're all going to end up like this. You know, we're all going to end up decaying. That includes you, my friend. You're going to end up like this, a werewolf, the rest of your time. You know, you. So I think that he kind of set the way the movie was kind of rolling as far as like, you know, I need to show up now. He's killed 8 people. I need to show him how devastating it is. Right. So there's like kind of your middle warning. Right. Then you had your beginning warning, like, hey, dude, like you got attacked by a werewolf, and if you don't kill yourself, this curse is going to make you turn, and you're going to kill all these people, right? So there's your beginning warning, and Jack did all of that stuff. He was like, hey, but I'm trying to tell you. And then it was obviously too late now at the time. He's fallen in love. He didn't listen to any of the red flags. He thought it was just kind of a joke. Other doctors trying to tell him, no, dude, you're a werewolf. And he's like, nah, what are you talking about? Right? That's impossible. Who cares? The pain I just went through 2 hours ago. None of that shit matters at all. Well, a few hours ago anyway. But I see him as the protagonist that's trying to get that, regulate that, and he has a bit of the comedy. I think he's like that comic relief, if you will, where he comes in.
Yeah.
There's going to be a joke or two now because his skin's falling off. He's turning green. His eyeballs are popping out. So there's going to be a little bit of comic relief. So for me, I think that kind of adds to him kind of controlling the flow, and what's coming next, and it's still something to think about, psychological again, not just complete horror, but good psychological as well.
Yeah. And I like that, like, they kept, like, at the beginning of the movie, their banter, like, I mean, I'm not a guy, so I don't know, but like their banter seemed very genuine, like buddy guy banter.
Yeah.
And even like when Jack's all falling apart and stuff, like they were still jabbing each other, like just like they were still alive.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like
yeah.
Baby wasn't a werewolf and Jack wasn't deteriorating. Like they were still having that guy banter mixed in with it. And it made it more like, I guess realistic is the word I'm looking for. It made you buy into what was going on between
definitely
with both of their transformations, and it was a way for him, like you said, to try to convince him, like, dude, like you gotta kill yourself, you gotta die because this is not going well, and it's just gonna get worse from here on out.
I mean, there's 3 red flags: a middle, beginning, and end. Here you go, bud. Like, figure it out, or this is the way it goes. And he keeps telling him all the time, I'm just rotting, man. I'm getting worse here. And you're gonna go out and just keep killing people for no reason. How was the zoo? Were you comfortable there? How was the hayride?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting though, It's interesting to think that, you can be cursed with something like that, and somebody can still talk to you and tell you in your dreams, that you just have to kill yourself. It's very interesting how they made that psychological terror, if you will.
Yeah.
With a bit of comedy in between. So it was pretty.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's what's so great about it. What makes it so rewatchable, and like you said, you can watch it and you keep catching things, but it's got the humor, it's got some good drama, it's got buddy movie at times, and really it makes you question things too, because you're like, yeah, like what would you do? Like what would you do if you were in a situation?
Yeah,
like, it would take you a while to figure it out, and then you're like, I guess I gotta die, and he finally does come to that conclusion, and does die at the end.
Yeah. And you're right. The banter is still genuine, though, even though one is dead, the other one is living as like a supernatural being, if you will, and an archetypical type of werewolf, but really that's not it. It doesn't have like superpowers or anything like that. He just turns into a werewolf, which is cool. He doesn't like jump off of this, and he's not grabbing babies and saving them, So it's
he's no Marvel guy.
Out the window, it's just totally different. But yeah, I think that just that him protagonist and just fooling with him all the time, man, really helps set that pace, and really keeps that going pretty good.
Yeah. So I like that. I want to go back to the scene because we were talking about how whether they're his dreams or they're psychological on in his head, the things going on in his head where he's in the forest, and then we alluded to it earlier, the scene where it shows him it's his family in his house, and the Nazi looking, I don't know, I call them goblins, some people call them demons, some people say that they're types of werewolves come into the house and like shoot everybody and set the place on fire, and they slit his throat. Like, what did you think? Like, again, let's go back to that scene. Like, what did you think about that scene?
I didn't know how to take it at first. I mean, I was a kid watching it the first time. As I got older, seeing it a few more times, it's just that psychological horror we were talking about earlier, where, in his head, he sees, the nightmares of what's happening, but then he sees these other things because he's transforming, right? So he sees these guys, these ghouls, if you will, or monsters, whatever. They were just, had machetes and machine guns, and they're just firing at everybody, and they burn the house down, they catch everybody on fire, they're killing his family, right? So in his mind, I'm thinking that, that's pretty hardcore. That's pretty hardcore. So in his mind, what's going to happen if he doesn't kill himself? Is this what's going to happen to his family? Like, is that what's going on right now in his mind? Like, does he need to hurry up and run home? Because if I remember correctly, the timing was he gets on the phone, kind of like a few scenes after that, but he gets on the phone and calls home, and he finally gets a hold of somebody. I don't remember what the conversation was about, but it was definitely scary. Like, hey, I'm okay, but I'm not feeling good. I think he was talking to somebody. I'll have to look at that again, but
I think
uh,
his sister.
it was a sister. That's correct. And
Yeah.
I'll have to watch that again. But I remember he was talking to somebody. So everything, he was like, no, everybody, she was like, everything is fine. Everybody's good. We miss you. We love you. We're glad you're fine, and so on. But still, psychologically, what does that do to you? That'll, and I don't know what those ghouls were. I have no idea. I mean, there
I
was a
don't know
dude who
either.
was dressed in a ninja samurai stuff, and he had like
Yeah, yeah,
and he's like, like, whoa, where did that come from? I was like, that was definitely something different. That was definitely something
yeah.
cool.
Well, I think they allude to David being Jewish, right? Like the nurses made a joke at some point. They're like, oh, because,
Oh,
in Americans, circumcision is, it's typically an American thing, but
yeah,
it's
right.
also, Jewish people also do that. And they allude to him being Jewish because they're like, oh, look, he's circumcised or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
meaning in the UK, I don't think they do circumcision. So I think they're alluding to him. And if they mention, I don't know if they actually mentioned their last names or not. I could be mistaken. So maybe that's why they were also Nazis. So it was like this double thing of like, monsters are going to get my family
Oh,
because I'm
sure.
turning into a monster. And
Yeah,
then the whole Nazi thing and
yeah.
being the Jewish family, like I'm thinking that had to do a part of it. And I read that it's actually Rick Baker is the one that slits David's throat in
Oh,
that scene.
really?
So he has like a little
So he
cameo.
has a little
Yeah.
cameo in there. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
That's
then,
pretty cool.
the Muppets are playing in the background. I guess that's an episode I read on IMDb. It like never aired in the US, so they had to actually credit them like on the credits.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. So that's
Yeah,
that's
and
some
then
good tidbits. Good research.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
then the guy who does the voice, Frank Oz, he's also in the movie. He plays the what do you call it? The embassy guy. Like what do you call oh my god.
Oh, the ambassador.
Like a diplomat, I guess.
Yeah, a diplomatic
So he
ambassador.
has a cameo as well. So
Oh,
he's like
okay.
he's doing the voices and he's doing that. So, but yeah, Mrs. Piggy and Kermit, like
Oh,
look in
wow.
the
I didn't
credits,
know
they
that.
get a
No,
credit.
that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with that sequence besides
Okay.
what it actually contributes to the movie. There's other like I guess you call them Easter eggs.
Yeah, that's Jim Henson that did the Muppets, right? So I hope he was getting paid off there, little royalties off there a little bit. That'd be fun.
I would hope so. I mean, Jim Henson's another one, man. He's done a lot of stuff.
Golly, that guy's been around a long time. Well, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
was
he's
around a
still.
long
I mean,
time.
I think his studios are still contributing. They just did like Five Nights at
Oh,
Fred. They did
sure.
some of the stuff for Five Nights at Freddy's, and
Oh, really?
he's not around, but his company, and I think the son's involved, right?
Oh, okay.
They're
Okay.
still around doing a lot of stuff.
Huh.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about the ending then. I think
Oh, yeah. Let's
we've
go
kind of
there.
progressed, right? He
Yeah.
turned into a werewolf. He has all these nightmares. He falls in love with this chick, the nurse who was taking care of him. They finally figure out like, yeah, what I got, I'm gonna have to die. And a little tidbit. I just have to say this because the dreadful dialogue. We are fans of cats, of course. If you look at our
Okay. Yeah.
logo
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
that is our actual cat. So a silly tidbit here. The scene where the night he's gonna change, he first walks out and there's like a cat that hisses at him.
Yeah.
I read on IMDb that to get the cat to hiss, they just put another cat in front of him. That's how cats are. It's like that's very high tech there. Just how do we get the cat to hiss? Just get another cat. Cats if they're not raised together, they don't like each other.
Yeah. Right.
I just thought that was something silly when I read. I was like, oh my god, is that some of my cats? Like when I have two that are like they can't get along. They stay in their own sections of the
Yeah.
house.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I went off on a little tangent.
No. That's cool. Yeah, we don't have any. We just have a big old dog. I don't think we're really a cat family, but I at one time we'll probably end up doing a smaller dog, maybe. But I don't know if we're a cat family.
Yeah. Hey, we like all the animals. We've had dogs, we've had cats. Right now, we just happen to be in a cat phase.
Yeah.
We've had both in my household.
I think Celeste and I are just happy that Cooper's still alive and kicking at this point, as much as we've done, and he's got with us and went backpacking with us, and I mean, dog's been all over the place. I mean, he has a new dog house. plus his house, plus a screen room, and 3 beds. I mean, he's got more stuff than I
Nice.
do. I'm
Yeah,
just a
that's our
guy.
cats. They're spoiled. Yeah. Our cats have gone camping. I mean, it's crazy. We've
Uh,
gone it like
that's
we're the people. We have a cat hanging out in the trailer, but yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
right,
So
right.
the ending. So we talked about how he fell in love with Nurse Alex, and I was like, I didn't buy into it, but
Yeah.
after what you told me earlier, thinking back to his conversation with Jack, I'm like, maybe because of the transformation and everything he was going through, like maybe he didn't really fall in love with her. But what did you think about that ending? Did you think it was a good ending?
Oh, man, the ultimate ending.
Would you have
I'm
done it
gonna start
different?
right.
There's no right or wrong answer here.
There can't be, right? So, I mean, she proclaims her love, right? Like she knew it was him right away. Like the doctor calls and said, "Hey, have you seen blah 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 the television?" She's like, "No, what's going on?" Well, there's some kind of animal attack in Piccadilly Circus, and she's like, "Oh my God, Joe!" Right? So I'm sorry, oh my God, David. She knew it was David right away. I mean, she just knew right
Yeah,
away.
yeah,
How did she know he was the monster wolf right away? Like it never kind of led on to like. Remember, she was telling him, "Oh, it's all in your head." That's not really. Remember, she was like trying to balance that out, and now all of a sudden, okay, now she believes. Right? It goes to Piccadilly Circus. He's biting the sheriff. He's eating other cops. He's causing wrecks. I mean, people are jumping in front of buses. It was pretty cool to see a double decker flip over. I mean, I didn't think those things would ever flip. I mean, they've been around for forever since they were driving.
yeah,
We've had double decker buses, right? And then I like it how the werewolf of all werewolves, right? Like this is like the ultimate werewolf. They can get out of anything. How the hell did this dude find his ass in a dead end? Like a dead end. And didn't know how to get out, right? He's been eating everything on his way in, right? But could eat a couple of people to get his way out. And I understand they're ready for it. It's blockaded. And then she gets to like fight through the crowd and get in there and she's talking to him. Like, there's no damn hell way that they're gonna let her go in there and talk to a werewolf. Like, that's not happening.
wow.
So the ending was for me, I was like, oh, come on. Like she goes in there, but David, I love you, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I do too. It's like, yeah. So I'm like, well, that's it. And then it goes right to the credits and the music. And I'm like, no, like, seriously, the dude could have climbed up the mountain or something. But then I'm going back to, old school, what it is now, not what it was then, type of werewolf movies. Like, there could have been so much more to it. Like, maybe he could have found a way to transform back, or
Mhm.
maybe actually do attack her, and then maybe she transforms and now she's a werewolf, whatever you want to call her, I mean, something. So the ending to me was just kind of cheesy. I think it could have been a little bit more in detail, and could have done a little bit more. But I mean, to have a werewolf rolling around in your town or your city is, I mean, that's pretty drastic thing going on in the first place, and he's not giving a shit who he's biting or who he's attacking. He's just doing his thing.
Yeah.
So I thought it could
I
have ended a little
actually
bit
thought,
different. Go ahead.
yeah. No, I thought that the ending, like all of the people like dying around him, that he wasn't even actually like attacking, like that kind of scared me more. Like, because they're at like Piccadilly Circus, right? And there's like cars crashing into each other. It's like that. I was more traumatized by that than like, oh, there's a werewolf running. I mean, in real life, would I have been that way? I don't know, but to see all the carnage that's
Yeah,
not actually from him, but the carnage that he's causing, that was actually more horrifying than like the actual werewolf running
yeah,
around.
yeah,
Yeah, and I thought I had trouble. I think like with the whole love thing because I was like, this chick is like, she must like people with issues or crazy because he's telling her, oh, I'm a werewolf, and he's having these visions, and then like she gets like super into her past when they hook up. She's like, oh, well, I've had sex with this many people and all that. I'm like, why would you tell somebody that? Like, I don't know. I'm like, I didn't think she was right. I was like, maybe she's not right in her mind either because she was down to hook up with this guy that was like kind of crazy, you know?
right. Yeah. Can I go back to something? I remember how we were talking about the ghoul scene. Like I want to,
Yeah, go
I
back.
got some notes right here that I mean I wanted to use a note. So let me just talk about a note here I had that was pretty
Yeah, go
interesting.
for it. Go for it.
So I wrote this note because we were talking about the dream scene, how the ghouls happen and stuff like that. So I wrote this note, and I'll just read the note to you, word for word, so you can
Yeah,
take it
go
from
for it.
there. I said to me, it
Mhm.
kind of it implies that David was so terrified of himself that he believed both himself and his family needed to be eliminated. Like, so I think in his head, that was what the ghouls were coming in, where those were how he was eliminating his family, going on. So, yeah, different interpretation, different perspective. I think this is the way he was coping with the fear of becoming a murderer or a predator. Was he figured
Hmm.
that, hey, if I just kind of, kill my family, I guess that would be the best way for me to try to cope with this. And dude, if that's not psychological, I mean, that's like, you know, a kidnapping and you not wanting to hurt the people that took your baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, how is that not the first thought in your head? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was to be the most
Yeah.
psychological thing ever. And so, I mean, and even worse, this, even worse, his buddy keeps telling him the same thing. Oh, hey, you need to kill yourself. You need to kill yourself. This is a buddy of several years. So, I mean, just psychological, if you will, horror warfare in your head, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was kind of, if anybody wasn't really scared and they really got into this analytically, you could really terrify yourself just analytically. I mean, just
Yeah.
going through those
Especially if you don't know,
motions.
like this would be a good movie to show somebody and you don't tell them the title. Just watch
Correct.
it.
Yeah, just watch
I
it,
think if
figure it
again
out.
the title gives it away,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, you were right when you said that earlier. Like, what is it? It's kind of like, well, I know what's going to happen here. And one of those guys are going to turn into a werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very
So
good, man.
thinking about your notes, because I know we kind of like, we kind of like had sent each other information. We were
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
had our going back and forth. You also wrote, I read something that you had wrote really cool about, I had asked you like how you thought this film challenged werewolf mythology. Because you said you're really big into werewolves. Would you like to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I never really, so I guess I kind of, what I meant by it was I'm just kind of into it because it kind of overcame a fear. Like obviously when I saw this movie, I never really wanted a dog for a long time. I was like, I just don't want a dog. I don't want any
And then you saw
responsibility of
Cujo. No, I'm
pet.
just kidding.
Oh, and that was even worse. Like I didn't get to see that till I was about 13, but I was a little older then,
Yeah,
so
that was a
I
while
didn't
ago.
worry too much about it. But man, those types of movies stick into your head, and you think about in the woods because I always liked being in the woods, man. And any dog that crossed your path was always going to be that way. So for me, it was just always. I was always nervous about that. So I was just always like, to compare it to a Jason movie. I wouldn't go in the water for a long time. One of my buddies owns like, well, he did. He owns like 200 acres in Running Springs, and it was a Boy Scouts camp. And we used to go out there and
Uh-huh.
get on the lake out there, and they had canoes and paddles. Man, there wasn't a time that I wasn't on that lake that I was waiting for Jason to come out of the water, man. There wasn't a time I was walking through the woods waiting for like a coyote to be a giant dog, and we're all terrified. Or like we would sleep out in the cabins out there. We'd clean them up, and they would pay us to clean them. Then we'd sleep out there overnight, and the howling, or it's just a regular wolf. I mean, come on, we're in the San Bernardino Mountains. It's things like that. But I guess it just kind of just always stayed with me that way. And now I have a dog. I'm
Yeah,
not so much
a
worried
really
about
good
it
dog.
anymore. Yeah, a really great dog, and we're a family. We're definitely a family that loves pets. We're actually looking for a second dog, so a little bit of tragedy, but at the same time, a good outcome at the same time.
Yeah, it's no, it's what you're saying. It's true. I mean, I always, the stereotypical fan. You're watching movies. You're like, why are you going there? What are you doing? Where are you doing that? And like, I find myself the same way. Like, when I'm out camping or I'm out doing things or I'm out in places, I'm like, oh, I'm looking for this. I'm looking for
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
For better or for worse, like sometimes it's like, okay, just relax and have a good time. I mean,
yeah,
also some of my military stuff comes into that, but I don't want to go off onto that
yeah,
tangent.
yeah, yeah.
But
So,
I think it brings it definitely affects you. Like my mom even told me, again, we're gonna go off on a little tangent before we end the episode. Like my mom even told me when she went to see Psycho, like as a teenager, she's like, oh my god, like I was so scared to take a shower after because Hitchcock, like from what I understand, he made sure to like not allude to like what the movie was about. He didn't put that scene in the preview. Of course, he did a really good job of not spoiling the ending. So you go into this movie and you're like, what the hell?
yeah,
Just got
right.
hacked up in a
Yeah,
shower. So I mean, yeah, that definitely happens. You watch certain movies or you see these tropes and you see these things going on in movies and yeah, they will make you second guess what you got going on in your real life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Is there anything else before we go ahead and close up the episode that you
No,
wanted to share with us?
no, I think that's really good. We got into a lot of pretty good stuff, man. I think you added some really good trivia in there that I didn't know about. So thank you. I mean, that's awesome. This is one of my favorite movies. Like I said before in the beginning, I've gone back as long as George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, Black and White. I mean, those are some great classics. And I always like zombies. I like real werewolf movies. Like I'm not into the whole underworld type of thing, even though they're cool. The graphics are great. I mean, we all watch it for certain reasons. And they're all fun. But no, really have nothing else to add, man. I appreciate you just having me on today, and thank you so much.
No, I thank you. The Dreadful Dialogue wouldn't be successful if I didn't have people to have dialogue with. So thank you for coming on as a guest. As usual, it's even better when I get to catch up with a friend that's, we don't live on the same side of the country anymore. We get to chat. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Brad. We'll definitely have to have you come back on, seeing as you are such a big fan of the genre. We'll find another movie at some point. And,
yeah, anytime.
Have you back at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anytime. Just let me know. I'd be open for that anytime. Definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and close up the episode. I want to thank everybody for listening. Of course, thanking our guest, Brad. Thank you for listening to the Dreadful Dialogue. If you want any more information about us, you can check out our website, dreadfuldialogue.com. We're also on Instagram at Dreadful Dialogue Podcast. We're on a couple platforms. I know we're on Spotify. We're on iTunes, and we've just got put onto YouTube. We don't have video on there. It's just if you're somebody who prefers to listen to it on YouTube. I know a lot of people are doing that at work now to get around from YouTube isn't blocked, but Spotify is, so they're listening to the podcast that way. You can check us out on there. Hey, if you like what you're listening to, go ahead and leave us a review, 5-star reviews, and thank you for listening. Until next time, have a good one. See you later, Brad. Thank you.
You're welcome. See ya. Thanks.